Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajanaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Bad Paramahansa Padavidikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavidikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Darottamam and Devim Saraswatim Vyasam and Tato Jai Mudiriyet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances to Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Well, I have to answer the call of nature. I'll be back in 2 minutes. 2 poems. And so I'm trying to do too much, and I usually have a little interval in it. Do the needful. 4 people washing the pots? Oh, watching. Okay. All right. Narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiriye. Before reciting the srimadbhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of November, 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in the 4th canto entitled The Creation of the 4th Order, Chapter 7, The Sacrifice Performed by Daksha. Text number 50. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Aham Brahma Sarvascha Jagatak Karanam Padam Atmeshwara Upadrashta Swayandrig Abhisheshanaha. One second. I forgot my little recorder, so. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Aham Brahma Sarvascha Jagatak Karanam Padam Atmeshwara Upadrashta Swayandrig Abhisheshanaha. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Aham Brahma Sarvascha Jagatak Karanam Padam Atmeshwara Upadrashta Swayandrig Abhisheshanaha. Janardhan. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Aham Brahma Sarvascha Karanam Padam Atmeshwara Upadrashta Swayandrig Abhisheshanaha. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Aham Brahma Sarvascha Jagatak Karanam Padam Atmeshwara Upadrashta Swayandrig Abhisheshanaha. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Aham Brahma Sarvascha Jagatak Karanam Padam Atmeshwara Upadrashta Swayandrig Abhisheshanaha. So I guess I started it, and I think we all did it. Is that we said Aham Brahma Sarvascha instead of Aham Brahma Sarvascha. Did you catch it? Okay, so you did it right. But I was saying Sarvas is everything. Sharva is Shiva. So it's a big difference. So we'll have to watch our pronunciation. Shri Bhagavan, Lord Vishnu, Uvacha, said, Aham, I, Brahma, Cha, and Sharvaha, Lord Shiva, Cha, and Jagataha, of the material manifestation, Karanam, cause, Param, supreme, Atma Ishvaraha, the super soul. Upadrashta, the witness. Swayamdrik, self-sufficient. Abhisheshanaha, there is no difference. 5-second delay. Translation. Lord Vishnu replied, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and I are the supreme cause of the material manifestation. I am the Supersoul, the self-sufficient witness. But impersonally, there is no difference between Brahma, Lord Shiva, and me. Purport. Lord Brahma was born out of the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva was born out of the body of Brahma. Lord Vishnu, therefore, is the supreme cause. In the Vedas also, it is stated that in the beginning there was only Vishnu, Narayan. There was no Brahma or Shiva. Similarly, Shankaracharya confirmed this. Narayana Para. Narayan, or Lord Vishnu, is the origin, and Brahma and Shiva are manifested after creation. Lord Vishnu is also Atmeshwara, the Supersoul in everyone. Under his direction, everything is prompted from within. For example, in the beginning of srimadbhagavatam, it is stated, Tene Brahma Rada. He, Vishnu, first educated Lord Brahma from within. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.2, Lord Krishna states, Ahamadihi Devanam. Lord Vishnu, or Krishna, is the origin of all demigods, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. In another place in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Krishna states, Aham sarvasya prabhavaha. Everything is generated from me. This includes all the demigods. Similarly, in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadyasyataha, and in the Upanishads is the statement, Yato va himani bhutani jayante. Everything is generated from Lord Vishnu, everything is maintained by him, and everything is annihilated by his energy. Therefore, by their actions and reactions, the energies which come from him create the cosmic manifestations and also dissolve the whole creation. Thus the Lord is the cause and also the effect. Whatever effect we see is the interaction of his energy, and because the energy is generated from him, he is both cause and effect. Simultaneously, everything is different and the same. It is said that everything is Brahman, sarvam kalvidam Brahma. In the highest vision, nothing is beyond Brahman, and therefore Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are certainly non-different from him. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Vishnu has appeared in the sacrificial arena, and after receiving many prayers from different exalted personalities, he is now speaking. And basically he's saying that I'm one with and different from Brahma and Shiva. That as Vishnu, everything emanates from me. And so Brahma comes from Vishnu on that lotus growing out of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And we've learned how Lord Shiva appeared from between the eyebrows of Brahma when he was trying to create. And the Kumaras became reluctant. They refused to propagate. They wanted to stay as little children and not get entangled. And so that Brahma became angry. He held the anger in, but it came out from between his eyebrows, and that became Lord Shiva, Rudra, anger. So, so there you have it. I mean, Shiva is the origin. He's the origin of Brahma. Brahma is the origin of Shiva. So Vishnu is the origin of everything. And in this purport, Prabhupada stays with that theme, and how even the energies that we see, right? Everything that we see is simply Krishna's energies. Within every one of us is the super soul, a plenary portion of Krishna. Although he doesn't manifest all of the energies of Krishna, all of the qualities of Krishna, it's still Krishna. And he's maintaining in this way the whole universe. And when it comes time for destruction, it's Krishna's energies acting on the guidance of Lord Shiva. He expands into 11 Rudras, and Ananta Shesh at the bottom of the universe is also involved in the whole thing. But it's all Krishna. It's all his energies or his expansions. So this is a theme that comes up again and again. You find it in the Gita, you find it in the Bhagavatam, is to see through the eyes of Shastra means to see Krishna everywhere. Either directly on the altar, if you're advanced in your heart, and to see his energies working everywhere, so everything is connected to him. And the fact is that one can only attain that vision if one attains love for Krishna and is trying to use everything in his service. Because as soon as you perceive something of this material world and the desire to enjoy it arises, then you've separated from Krishna. You've separated it from Krishna. Or rather, Maya covers your intelligence and makes you forget that it's Krishna's. Because you want to be the enjoyer. You don't want to feel that it's Krishna's for his enjoyment. So that diseased mentality of the conditioned soul needs to be reformed, and that's what this movement is all about. Bhakti Yoga is about transforming our desires with the help of our intelligence and our senses and everything else. And of course with the help of Krishna through his instruction, through his representatives, through his murti, through his name, and all kinds of other ways. So again and again we find this theme that everything is Brahman. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. The danger is in turning it into an impersonal understanding. It's interesting here, impersonally there is no difference between Brahma, Lord Shiva, and me. But the impersonal is not the complete. There's an impersonal aspect to everything. In that sense, we're all one. But more important to our identity and our activities and our life is seeing the different personalities and interacting with them in various rasas. That's really what life is all about. Just like for Krishna, he's not attached to anything, but he's certainly not attached to making this material world, running the material world, expanding, all of that. That's all happens because it's needed for us, for our reformation. We need a place. We conditioned souls, we rebellious souls, need a place where we won't disturb Krishna's, pure devotees in the spiritual world. Many of them there eternally. There can't be any discord there. As soon as there's some discord, they have to leave. That's why Jai and Vijay, they're kind of on the border, they had to leave. But we've left. We were kicked out. But we weren't like cast into perdition, damnation for eternally. That's not the way it works. We're still Krishna's beloved sons and daughters, whatever. We're his children. So he's concerned. He's so, infinitely intelligent and conscious that he can be completely absorbed in enjoying the pastimes in Goloka Vrindavan, and at the same time, through expansions, run this material world, create it all, and all the modes of nature and everything like that, and set up the punishments. He doesn't take pleasure in that, but that's necessary for us. And not just for those who are being punished in hell or some grievous karmic reaction. That's certainly not. But also for those who are seeing. We're seeing, right? If one acts in a certain way, he gets punished in a certain way. Just like in the state. The idea of the law system and everything is mostly to deter crime. If everyone was just a criminal, there could be no state. The idea is to invest in people. The idea, okay, there's laws, and we have to act by the laws. And if I do that, then I'll be peaceful relatively in this world. I won't have the police coming after me all the time anyway. So that's a deterrent. It's meant to be a deterrent. So in the universal arrangement of things, we're meant to see what the reality is, and that is that there's no real happiness here. You can't be peaceful and happy for any length of time. You can get a simulacrum of that, something that seems to be some happiness and peace. But we all know that in time it's going to be wrecked. In time you get older, in time the vacation ends, in time the high wears off. Time wrecks it all. As Uddhava famously says, Tashtam janam sampatitam vilesmin kalayana chuddhusagoda darsham. He's speaking to Krishna. Krishna is teaching him the Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto. And in the middle of it, he says, my dear Lord, he's taking the role of us conditioned souls. I've been bitten. I've been bitten by the snake of time. And I've fallen into this snake hole called the material world. Very dangerous and dirty. And in that snake hole is the snake of time. And I've been bitten, means that, there's a great danger there and terror. So dashtam is bitten. Dashtam janam sampatitam bilesman kala hina. But despite being bitten by that snake of time, which wrecks all of our plans and just pushes us toward destruction, I'm still have a great thirst for insignificant sense gratification. The little drops of honey, the classic scene where the guy falls into a well, but he catches on to two roots. He doesn't, he doesn't go down into the bottom of the well, looks down there, there's a big, lion down there or a snake down there, ready to bite him and kill him. And he's hanging here, and he sees that, but there's two rats, white rat and a dark rat, chewing away at his little roots that he's hanging on to, so his death is imminent. And then there's a big lion at the top there, if he tries to climb out, ready to eat him. So that's the situation. That's our situation. But up in the tree, there's a beehive, and there's a few drops of honey dropping down. He catches it. Oh, it's not so bad. I'm getting this honey. That's material life. The white rat and the Muddy and Ryan Marsh love to tell this story. If you just wait long enough, periodically he'll sell you. So you have the white rat, that's the day and night, right? The time is going, and bottom I think is death, and up the top is just material modes of nature, or threefold miseries. So that's the situation. Everywhere you look, there's threat. But just like in the world today, it's reflected on a macro level with climate change. Let's see climate change. Each day, there's a new story about how bad it is. They've done a report recently, a whole bunch of scientists got together, reviewed everything, and said, oh, it's much worse than we thought. If we hit even 1.5 degrees centigrade above what it was during 40, 50 years ago, then it'll be horrible things. We'll have millions of people dying from starvation, and the ice caps will melt, whatever, So we have to hold it down. So it's a consensus. The scientists keep telling 95%, and the 5% that are paid off by Exxon and the other oil companies, they concoct some study to say, no, maybe not, So what's going on there? It's the same thing. It's that the desire of these companies to make money, this is what they live for. The people who rise to the top of the companies and become the CEOs, they're the ones who can best reflect this mood and really manipulate the material energy so that the profits are maximized. They're huge, $250 billion a year for Exxon or something like it, inconceivable. So they knew. In other words, these companies have their own scientists, and they're smart, Back in the 80s, even before it became known widely, they knew that burning their oil and gasoline was increasing carbon dioxide, and that was heating up the environment. It's not rocket science; it's just simple science. 8th graders can understand. So what did they do? Did they change their plan? Did they somehow? No, they hid this, and they established a whole system of paying scientists to write papers that poo-pooing the idea. Because their whole reason of being is to make profit. If people get turned off to driving cars and burning fossil fuels, then that's going to impact their bottom line. So the logical thing to do, when the only goal is profit, is to hide the whole thing. And to this very day, they're buying politicians who will go against it and everything. So what's going on there? The whole world is in danger, including them. But their knowledge is covered so much by this lust, by this desire for money and greed, that they're making it impossible politically, to really do anything about it. So the whole world's going off a cliff. So similarly, on an individual level, we do the same thing. It's obvious that we're all going to die, and all of our plans for happiness are going to be crushed. So what to do? Now, we don't know. We can develop a philosophy that, well, there's nothing else but this life. I don't see any transmigration. You guys talk about the soul. Forget about it. I got to pay my rent. But factually speaking, if we come in touch with the transcendental philosophy, and those who are coming from the transcendental realm, giving us the clue to a different. First thing is you're a soul. You'll never die. Then it changes everything. Our consideration. This is right in the beginning of the second canto. You know, because Parikit it concentrates everything, because there's 7 days to live. You know, so just imagine we all had 7 days to live. All right, well, let's forget about it. Let's get rid of this nonsense. I'm chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Where's the kirtan? Right? What else are you going to do? You got to maximize the Krishna consciousness. But really, we don't know. So that 7 days to live, he's every man. Parikit is asking for us. What should one do? What should one think about? What should one hear and chant at that time? And Shukadev, this is the second canto, right at the beginning, first verse. You know, not very far in. Even if you don't make it to the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, you still make the second canto you can read. So he says, very nice question. That very nice question, because the answer and the question itself give benefit for everybody. You see? Especially if you have someone who can answer it properly, like Shukadev. All of the great saints and sages, they praise questions like this. But on the other hand, those who are Grihamatis, simply absorbed in materialistic household life or materialistic life in general, they have millions of things to ask about and other than this. And all of those topics simply fill their mind with illusion, and then they do what he describes in the next 2 verses. He describes material life in 2 verses. He says, Nidriya, these people who aren't interested in the Atma Tattva, Nidriya hriyate naktam vibhayena cha bhavayak divacharteya rajan kutumba bhananena ba. It says at nighttime, sleep. A lot of sleep, as much as possible, especially on the weekend. And sleeping or sex. And during the daytime, running around, making money. Kutumba, to support the kutumba. Kutumba is your family, your children, like that. So basically on the weekend, shopping, and during the day, ordinary day, weekdays, working hard, at night sleeping or having sex. So in such a life, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of dangers. You can see that, it doesn't take very long. And so you need soldiers, you need a defense system. So this is what he calls the Atma Sainyeshu. Atma Sainya means army to protect the self. Okay, defense mechanism. So the first line of defense is your body itself. You try to keep the body healthy, you know, plenty of health insurance. And then your family, the children, the wife, and Kalatra, the wife, and etc. Etc. is extended family, the tribe, the nation, and etc. also includes the wealth that you need to accumulate. All of these are defenses against the implications of nature. Now they can also be sources of temporary happiness also, but those are your Atma Sainyeshu, your self-army. But he says Asatsu. The army itself is fallible. They are also subject to the destruction of time. So you're taking shelter of a stone boat, you're taking shelter of medicine that won't cure you. In other words, you're being bewildered by what can really help you. But even though one understands that, he says, Tesham pramatto nidanam pashyan, even though they see, because they're maddened by this desire for sense gratification and material life, that covers the knowledge, or even the ability to want to know the knowledge. Nidanam pashyan, apina pashyan. Even though they see, I mean, who hasn't understood? It doesn't take very long. I mean, I remember, it sticks in my mind. Some things stick in your mind from years, you know, from childhood even. And that is when the first person who I knew died. I mean, I knew people were dying all the time, but it didn't mean anything to me because, you know, it's like, you know, cowboys and Indians, yeah, they die. But this was my grandmother, who I had known, we visited, we had affection with, and she died. You know, it was just like a big shock. Oh my God, people die, you know. So as you grow up, you know, all kinds of people die. There's always people dying. So it's not a question of not seeing it. But although seeing it, you don't see it, meaning it doesn't impact you and cause you to ask essential questions. Well, I'm going to die too. Then what am I doing here with all of this temporary stuff? Is there life? Is there eternal life? Is there anything like that? In other words, atato brahma jigyasa. One has to inquire into the truth of the self. And generally that's not done. So in a world like we have today, where are the people who are inquiring? There's a few, who Hare Krishnas and others. But the vast majority of people are so absorbed in the things of this world, trying to survive another day. These poor guys on the street are just ordinary people. So we should keep that clarity of mind. What's really important, and we'll see that there's always an urgency. There's always an urgency. We don't know how much time we have. There's an urgency to keep chanting. There's an urgency to keep the mind on Krishna. That's the only place of safety, factually speaking. That is the only place of safety in this world. That's why Prabhupada said the safest place in the world is Sankirtan. Harinam Sankirtan. There's a little known Leela of Prabhupada's. Now, back in 43, I think Prabhupada mentioned, the war is on, World War II. The British Raj is there with India. So India is part of England, basically. So the Axis included Japan. And so at a certain point, Japan started bombing Calcutta because they were aligned with Hitler. They were trying to. So Prabhupada described, he was living in Calcutta at the time. And so the bombs are coming. He even gets these wonderful sound effects. You ever hear Prabhupada say, right on the tape. It's startled. So first thing, what Prabhupada says on the tape, on the lecture, is that I didn't feel fear. I saw it as kind of fireworks. He said, like fireworks. He said most of the people that left Calcutta, they were so afraid, and probably was still living there. But what comes out in the biography, it's more than it's a memoir and an autobiography of Bhakti Charuswami, which I worked on a few years ago, which is entitled Ocean of Compassion or Ocean of Mercy, I think, describing Prabhupada, how he came. It's a very fascinating story. So he says that Prabhupada not only was he there were other members of the Gaudiya Math there. Prabhupada was part of the Gaudiya Math, at that time, Bhaktisiddhanta. They went out on Harinam. They went out on Harinam in the middle of this bombing. And you can think, well, that's the safest place to be. It's a win-win. We're giving people the holy name. We're absorbed in chanting. And anyone who hears, they're benefited. If they get bombed, then that's what better than to be hearing the holy name. And, it just described how, they're transcending the fear. So that's and Prabhupada says, for one who is fully Krishna conscious, beyond fear. That's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. I forget how it goes now, the verse. So that's really our situation. When we fall into Maya, it means that we're, taking a risk. We're taking a risk, letting ourselves fall into Maya. That we won't die at that point, that we can always come back. This is part of Maya's trick, is that you have time. We don't know how much time we have. Time in Krishna consciousness just go by. Like 45 years is just like, really? 45 years? It's like, I can just remember joining in 73. So anyway, this theme now, which comes up again and again, of course, is that Vishnu, Krishna, is describing how he's everything, and he's completely equipoised. Now here it's interesting, if you just take in the whole scene, what's happened, because Daksha had been completely chastened. He got killed, beheaded, because he was such a nonsense. He had become so proud, and his daughter didn't even want to be related to him, and she committed suicide in front of him. Burning herself, sati. There's an English word, sati. It means when a woman goes into the fire of her husband and burns herself. Started with sati. And Virabhadra, created by Shiva, when he heard, that anger was personified, and he goes, wrecks the whole sacrifice, and, disperses everybody and beheads Daksha. But Daksha is an important figure. He's very important, Prajapati, and populating the universe. So he's not like cast into hell or anything. He's given another chance, but with a goat's head. So he can't be very proud anymore, But he's completely forgiven here. In other words, Vishnu shows up in his sacrifice. And Daksha later on, he has prayers and everything. In other words, he's not. So it reminds me of yesterday, the time of the Govardhan Puja, where Indra, as Balaram pointed out, he tried to annihilate the whole village with all the cows and Krishna's friends. It's like demonic, right? But Krishna knew he wasn't really a demon. And sure enough, he becomes completely chastened and sorry, and he offers these wonderful prayers in the last chapter, after Wonderful Krishna chapter, and he offers the prayers with Surabhi. And he's forgiven, completely forgiven. Because he's a servant. He's an important part of the government there, the universal government. He's basically a devotee. So that quality of Krishna, you don't find it, that's exactly opposite to the demons. In other words, devotees are also meant to be like that. Is to be very tolerant. If there's some spark of devotion in someone, there's some sincerity, then you tolerate so much nonsense, and you say, okay, put that behind you, now get serious, and rather than you're out forever, never, darken our doors again, No, the devotee is always ready. He'll take some prasadam, at least, like that. So that's Krishna's, because he is so infinite, grand. There's no question of him holding a grudge. After all, we're all his children. So this is very encouraging, but at the same time, we should know, again, that there's an urgency to our Krishna consciousness. And that for every one of us, time is running out, and we don't know how much time we'll have. I mean, there have been young devotees who've been killed in car crashes or plane crashes and everything. So that, turnam miteta nabateta namityava. Turnam miteta means immediately strive. As soon as you understand the urgency of it, don't waste any time. How many times do we read that in the Shastra? Krishna's Kaviraj has a dream, and Nityananda comes to him in the mood of Balaram and says, go to Vrindavan, you'll find everything there. He wakes up, boom, he leaves home, he just takes sannyasi, goes to Vrindavan. The 6 Goswamis, right, Rupa and Sanatan, after they met Lord Chaitanya, he told them go to Vrindavan. They did everything they could to extract themselves as quick as possible from their entanglement with the king in that whole position, and off they went. So that, because one of the things is, by delaying, you get into the habit of delaying and postponing. Rather than striking when the iron is hot, so to speak, when you're really inspired. I remember in the early days when being part of the Krishna consciousness movement means joining up. There's not much of a congregation. And so you always wanted, someone comes to the temple. I mean, I came to the temple, I was entangled. I had a job, I had a car, I had a little bank account, my own apartment and everything. I was all set up, So I needed a push. And I made the mistake of praying ardently to Krishna, actually Vishnu. I love that Paramatma in the heart painting. It's really, and so I was praying, please make some arrangement to, I can move into the next stage, because I've been doing hatha yoga and hanging out, and fall into Maya and going back. So it's an interesting story. I had established myself. I could have had a career as a inhalation therapist. I had already been there a year. I had a paid vacation. I knew the ropes, and I could have taken courses and everything. So, but I was trying to do yoga. I was going into the city. I lived on Long Island, a whole into the city. I couldn't do it every day, only on the weekends. So next day, right on the bulletin board. You heard this story before? I don't know if I told you that. There was a little clipping from a paper about a job, a night shift job, where you work from 8 to 4 in the morning or something like that. At a hospital that was like 1/10 of the distance from my home that the hospital where I was working at was. It was just right around the corner. So this is great. I can just walk there practically, and or take a 2-minute drive, and then I can work during the night, and during the day I can go into the city. I'll sleep for 5-6 hours, and I can go into the city practically every day, and can find my yoga studios and everything like that. So I got a really good recommendation from my existing job, because I'd been there a year, So I was accepted for a trainee, and I started training. The first week, I think, I was just going around during the day shift. It was a much smaller hospital. There wasn't that much going on, maybe 5 or 6 patients max. They have to just, okay, Mr. Jones, try to cough. That was my job. And then I was there solo for the night shift. And I was already, I was doing raw food. I was doing all this yoga, pranayama. I was basically following the 4 regular principles. And so I was sensitized. And you know, hospitals are full of a lot of ghosts and things, you know. You know, people who die there. It's not a nice place. And I wasn't seeing the ghost, but I was feeling this presence. And there was nothing to do. Everybody was sleeping. So I basically was sitting there. I said, I can't do this. No way. Meanwhile, I had been visiting the temple and getting prasadam, you know, so I was already primed, you know. So I said, I can't, there's no way I can do what I'm trying to do here, you know, even though I'm making money. So I just gave it up, joined up, you know, and that was a whole different world. So that, you know, that, and Krishna gives you a lot of mercy. The first thing they do, I noticed with myself and others, that you get a foot injury. So you can't walk, like you can't walk out so well, you know. So you got a foot injury. A little sprained ankle or something, you know. So anyway, but the point I'm trying to get across here is that there's an urgency to trying to be as Krishna conscious as we can be as quickly as possible, because nothing is sure in this material world, and the ice caps are melting. We used to be worried about that, but they really are melting at this point, and things can get very disjointed in society very quickly. This way, you had, you know, these fires up in, you know, they're getting worse every year in California. We had fires down here. You remember, we didn't have to leave, but one of our members almost got killed in a fire. So it's all getting very extreme. But what the socio-political thing is, oh my God, diseases, you know, unplanned diseases. The antibiotics don't work anymore. So let's chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Okay, I went over time. Any questions or comments? Oh, I'm going to read a little bit about Vasudev Ghosh. Unless you have a question, go ahead. Oh, we got to look for Vasudev. Go ahead, Christian.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your talk.
Hare Krishna.
I kind of was thinking about this, where when I come into contact with people at work and so on and so forth, or at school, at home, people seem to be in normal consciousness. Like they, you know, seem to function and things like that. Could you elaborate a little bit on why I think that they're in normal consciousness?
Because you're in Maya. What's normal is madness. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma. It's not me, it's Rishabdev, Lord Rishabdev, who's Krishna. So certainly those who are simply after sense gratification are mad, because such a life is doomed. It dooms you to a lot of suffering. If you just live for the senses, as I said, Nunam pramatta. Pramatta is obviously means madness, really mad. Matta is mad. Pramatta is very mad. Kurute vikarma yadindriya pritiyab. Indriya priti exactly translates as sense gratification. So one is simply striving for that, and it doesn't have to just be gross. It can also be subtle. There's sense gratification in the mode of goodness. You know, if you know, live out in the country, live purely, vegan, whatever you may be. But it's without Krishna, it's still Maya. It's still sense gratification. So, and in that mood, one is sure to perform vikarma. Now, mostly, you know, in this age, 99.9%, vikarma means real grossly sinful activity that has no relation to the Vedas. Even the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, where it's a mode of goodness, sense gratification, very little reaction. But vikarma produces really heavy reaction. So what he says, Nasadu manye yata atmanome, Rishabdev says, I don't think this is a very good idea, because by acting in that way, you're sure to get another body which will produce suffering, the birth, death, old age, and things like that. So being a normal consciousness, I guess, means, you know, no one's freaking out, they're not doing anything weird, they're just like acting normally. But that's the whole problem, is that normal material consciousness is disastrous for the soul. It means that you haven't got an inkling about who you really are, or what your goal in life is, or how to achieve it. And so the Hare Krishna movement is there to disrupt people's normal consciousness. You know, sometimes Prabhupada said we have to annoy them. You know, because we was in Bombay and people were calling Bombay, you know, India, and he was having kirtan, and neighbors would call it a nuisance. It's a nuisance, you know. And Prabhupada, he gave a couple of lectures in Bombay. He says, just see how far we've come since independence. I was 47, he's speaking in 76, 5. Where in our own culture we're thinking Hare Krishna is a nuisance because it disrupts my watching the TV and doing some other nonsense. So the idea is that normal consciousness is a disaster. When the normal means, you know, Kali Yuga, normal consciousness. So we don't want to be normal, you know. When it means average, just what ordinary people do, because it doesn't. It's not fulfilling for the soul. It may be temporarily, you know, pacifying, but it doesn't solve our ultimate problems. And eventually you're faced with intractable problems that you have no idea what to do about in the old age, disease, and death like that. So you need to, you know, see the world through the eyes of the Shastra. Just like this second canto. You read, see if you can do an experiment. Read today the beginning of the second canto. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. Now, after a couple of verses like that, you know, he says, oh, these fallible soldiers people see, but they don't see. Therefore, Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavani Shrohari Smartavyak Chechitabhyam. If you want fearlessness at the time of death, everyone's afraid. Their whole life is falling apart, and they're being ripped away from everything they love, and they thought they knew. And, you know, everyone's afraid at the time of death. They try to mask it with all these drugs, you know, but everyone's terrified. So, if you want fearlessness, you have to be on the transcendental platform. So he says, therefore, O Bharat, O this exalted descendant of King Bharat, he's addressing Parikshit, one has to hear about, chant about, and remember Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supreme Controller, the indwelling Super Soul. He gives 4 different. Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari. Sarvatma. Sarvatma means the soul of all. This Super Soul, Bhagavan, Ishvara Hari. He's who you have to become conscious of at the time of death. And if you're fully conscious, then your life is successful. So Parikshit, understanding that, that's why he gave up the kingship. That's why he just sat down in a loincloth, you know, and waited for what would happen. And what happened was that all the great sages came, and Shukadev came to speak to him. So he didn't waste a moment. He didn't sleep, he didn't eat, he didn't drink anything. He's just sitting there for 7 days, listening to the Bhagavatam, becoming fully Krishna conscious and making his life successful. So that's, you know, that normal consciousness, normal is really abnormal. Normal consciousness is there in the spiritual world. Fully Krishna conscious, 100% serving Krishna, floating along in oceans of bliss, eternal life and full knowledge. That's normal. This is minority. We're in the minority, these conditioned souls. And it's abnormal and self-defeating. Hare Krishna. Okay, just quick about Vasudev Ghosh. Vasudev Ghosh and his 2 brothers, Madhava and Govinda, are eternal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Fixed in Madhurya Ras, they accepted Sri Radhika as their ultimate shelter. The brothers expertly performed sweet melodious kirtans. That's where the Ghosh is. When you hear Ghosh, it means the singer. Whenever they sang, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda would immediately dance in ecstasy. Every year they came for Ratha Yatra in Jagannath Puri. They led the chanting in one of the 7 kirtan groups arranged by Lord Chaitanya. Vasudev Ghosh used his music and song to preach in Bengal. He wrote many Bengali songs about Lord Gauranga, which are still sung by devotees. In one he says, if Lord Gaur had not appeared in this age of Kali, then how could we tolerate living? He has given the very essence, the very charm of life, divine love, without which it is impossible to live in this world. Without Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how could we ever know that Srimati Radharani reigns supreme in the kingdom of divine love? Having received all these things from Lord Gaur Hari, now we think life is worth living. In another bhajan, Vasudev Ghosh says, in your former Leela as Lord Ramchandra, you became famous for constructing a floating bridge of stones across the sea to Sri Lanka. Now in this Kali Yuga, you have given us the bridge of Harinam Sankirtan, by which even the lame and blind can cross the sea of birth and death and attain the supreme spiritual happiness. He is Guna Tunga Saki in Radha Madhava's Nitya Leela. Hare Krishna. You know, how fortunate we are, we few, and that includes you in the internet world, to have heard about Vasudeva Goswami this morning, as opposed to the millions of people out there who are leading normal lives. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.